And the Spirit and the bride say, come.
I believe you all have noticed that in the past 9 meetings, what we have covered was mainly or mostly from the Old Testament. We only have this one meeting left. What shall we do? So anyhow, we have to go on from the top of the New Testament to the bottom. So this morning, we will cover the whole New Testament just by one message. Rather, I would say we will cover the whole Bible. Have you noticed the first verse we read was the first verse of the Bible. And the last was in the last chapter of the last book of the Bible. So this means the message you are going to hear is going to cover the whole Bible. What does the whole Bible reveal to us? This is hard to say, right? Too many things. But we need to have a bird's eye view to look at the Bible from on high. If you do this, you could see the Bible mainly reveals to us 3 or 4 figures or characters. What are these? Number 1, the Bible reveals to us God as the Creator. God as the Creator is revealed in the Old Testament. This is why I give you the first verse of the Old Testament. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God was there in the beginning, and all the things were created by Him. So, the Old Testament reveals to us that God was and still is the Creator. Have you noticed? I give you also the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi. In the first chapter, the first 2 verses, Malachi reveals to us that God, the Creator, was a lover of Israel. What the Old Testament reveals to us is God as the Creator of all things and as the lover of one people. He loved Israel. He loved Jacob and his descendants. I tell you, this is the Old Testament. Just 2 or 3 verses good enough. Showing you what the Old Testament talks about. It talks about Elohim, the Almighty One, as the Creator, who created all the things, and as the lover, loving one people, children of Israel, the descendants of Jacob. I tell you, you may call this God the Jewish God. This is the God of the Jews. And this is God of Israel. In the Old Testament, you do have this term, right? God of Israel. Because God loved Israel. God was not only the creator of the universe, but also the lover of Israel. This is why all the Jewish people, they love the Old Testament. The Old Testament was unique to them because the Old Testament tells the people that the very unique God of the whole universe is firstly the creator of all things, including the bugs and so forth. But eventually, he is only the lover of one people. God created the heavens and the earth, and God loved Israel. I tell you, this is the Old Testament God. And this is the Jewish God. This is the God of Israel. I'd like to check with you this morning. I don't care whether you are a Jew or you are not a Jew. Is this your God?
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
Are you sure?
Amen.
You are wrong. This is not your God. This is partially your God. This is not wholly your God. Don't say yes. You say yes, you just follow the Jews. You say yes, this morning you shouldn't be here. You better go to the Jewish temple yesterday. You should be there to say yes in full. You shouldn't say full yes. You have to say partial yes. You have to say, brother, yes, partially. This is partially my God. Is this the whole Bible? Surely not. You have only 37 of the 66. You still have 27. I gave you the way already. This morning I remind you. Do you still remember my way? 3 multiply 9 equals 27. The Old Testament is 39 books. And the New is 27. It's hard for anyone to remember the number. You can remember it in this way. 39, right? And 27. 39, yeah. Got it. Oh, they got it. Okay. In this part, 39, we have God as creator. And we have God as Israel's lover. If we remain there, we all became Jews. If we remain there, we all would have been Judaized. No, the Bible doesn't stop there. Then we come to the New Testament, to the 27 books. And the first of this book, in the first verse, it says what? It says the generation or genealogy. The generation or the genealogy of Jesus Christ,
Amen.
the son of David and the son of Abraham. Not like Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning God. But Matthew 1:1 says, the generation, the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Another person. I'm right? Another person. In the same book, it goes on from this person, from this character, Jesus Christ. It goes on to the church. In chapter 16, This person one day asked his disciples, "Whom do you say I am?" One of the disciples answered, "You are the Christ, and you are the Son of the living God." Right away, this person told this disciple, "You are right. You got the vision from the Heavenly Father. Yet, I like to tell you something further. That is, I will build my church upon what you have seen. Amen. I will build my church upon your view, upon your vision, upon this vision concerning me being the Son of the living God. Upon this vision, I will build my church." No more Israel, loved by God, but the church built by Christ. Then you have another book. I covered the first one of the 4 Gospels. Now I go on to the last one. In John 1:1 it says, "In the beginning," what? God created. Again in the beginning. A different kind of beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and this Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. And we have seen his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father. Is this the one who created the earth, the heavens, the earth? Say it. Don't say no. Is it the one who created the heavens and the earth? Yes. You have to say yes, but. Yeah. Yes, but. I hope this morning some good Jews could be here. This is a gospel to them. Sorry, brother, this is what I call the teaching, preaching meeting. But you didn't do it. Sorry. We need to put out some teachings like this. Then spontaneous people get the preaching. Jewish gentlemen, you need to hear this teaching. You only have a partial God. You don't have the very God who created the heavens and the earth, but something more. But this God, who was in the beginning, became a man. He became a man. Oh, Jewish gentlemen, your God became a man. He, being God, was only part of what he is today. He went on. He didn't stop there. Your creator, your lover, he went on. He was not only in Genesis, nor in Malachi. Now he came to John. Why don't you receive John the Gospel? In John the Gospel, he became a man. So wonderful. Right? He became a man. Stopped here? No. He went on further. to chapter 20. He became a man through incarnation. Then after incarnation, he lived on this earth for 33.5 years. And then he went to the cross, passing through the crucifixion, and he entered into resurrection. When he entered into resurrection, or after he entered into the resurrection, he told his disciples, calling them, my brother, go and tell my brother, I'm going to see my Father, my God, your God. Something more. Something more. In Matthew, you have Christ, right, and the church. In John, you have the Son of God and many brothers. Could you see this? I say again, in Matthew, you have Christ, who was the Creator, and the church. Right? In John, you have the Son of God, who was the Creator, and his many brothers. And the Son of God is Christ, and the many brothers are just the church. So, up to here, you could see in the revelation of the Bible, you have these three characters: God, Christ, and the church. God embodied in Christ, and Christ expressed through the church. Is this your God? Why wouldn't you say strongly yes? Is this your God? Yes. You're too strong. You have to say yes, but still. Yeah, is this your God? Yes, but still. Why? Thus far, you are just up to the end of the 4 Gospels. Right? You still have another 23 books to go. From Acts to Revelation. What is here in Acts through Revelation? Here you have God plus Christ plus the church. Not only so, plus the churches. Am I right? You have God plus Christ plus the church and plus the churches. You couldn't see the churches in Matthew. Surely you can see the church. Of course, you can see one of the churches in Matthew. In Matthew 16, I will build the church. It is the church. The big, unique church, typified by Zion. Don't forget, Zion has many peaks. And this church has many branches. Like a tree that has many branches. In Matthew 16, you have the church. Then in Matthew 18, you have one of the branches of the church. That is a local church to which you can go if you have some problems. Or you can be dealt with, even be excluded by such a branch. And you could be considered as a heathen, as a publican, a tax gatherer, a bad person. But anyhow, in Matthew, you have the church. You have one of the branches of the church. That means one of the local churches of the church. Then, I tell you, when you get in the act, what you have? You have a church in Jerusalem. You have another church in Antioch. And you have so many churches in Asia Minor. In chapter 14, verse 23 says, elders were ordained in every church. If you read those two chapters, 13 and 14 of Acts, you could see every church denotes the churches Paul established in those provinces of Asia Minor. And so you can see in the book of Acts, the church became what? The churches. One was at Jerusalem. The other was at Antioch. And many were in Galatia, in Mysia, in so many places in Asia Minor. Then the following books, I gave you 1 Corinthians. There was a church in Corinth, right? Good enough. And then I gave you verses from Galatia. You have a number of churches in Galatia. Galatia was an ancient province of the old Roman Empire. Just like today in the USA, you have a state. California is not a city, but a state. In California today, we also have churches. At least we have more than a dozen churches in California. So in Galatia, there are many churches there. Many churches. Eventually, hallelujah, we come to the last book of the Bible. This morning I'm happy. I'm going to be mad. I got excited already. Not tonight, this morning. Last night I got excited. After meeting last night, I got home when I was thinking that this morning I will get on Revelation. I got excited. I tell you, in the whole Bible, no book is exciting or exciting as Revelation. You say amen. Sorry to say, you just follow blindly. Do you know why I was excited? Brother Dictator, why I was excited with this book? I was excited with these 1.5 verses. Actually, here in the Holy Word, you have such an expression. To the 7 churches from the triune God. No more the church, but the churches. 7 churches. No more the God, but the triune God. Here you have 1, 2. And you have 3 fronts. You read it. Oh, young people, I tell you, this is the way you have to learn how to study the Bible. John to the 7 churches which are in Asia. Grace and peace from when? Let's read. Now, the very God is not that simple. Even I cannot recite. To the 7 churches which are in Asia, from him who is, and who was, and who is coming, number 1, and from the 7 spirits who are before his throne, number 2, the first person is no more than simple. Just the Father. No. The first person here is described as one in the past, in the present, and in the future. And now, the third one formerly becomes the second one. The second one who was the formerly the third one, the Spirit. Now, it is not just Spirit, but the seven spirits. Have you seen the complication here? This is the second from, and then verse 5. And from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the Lord of the kings of the earth. How complicated. Who are these? The triune God. Not just the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. So simple. Very complicated. The Lord has to forgive me to use this word, complicated. Actually, not complicated, but very full. Not complicated, but complete. Very full, very complete. I tell you, this is our God. This is our God. Is this your God?
Amen.
Partially, wholly, or entirely?
Entirely.
You are right.
Amen.
But don't forget, this God, the completed God. You mean, oh, Brother Lee, this song they can blaspheme me. Wasn't God complete? Wasn't God perfect? You say it. You say it. In Genesis 1, was he perfect? Aha, you got caught. If you say yes, I say, be careful. If you say no, I say also be careful. It's hard to say. But anyhow, I tell you, the God in Genesis 1 was not the same as the God in Revelation 1, 4 and 5. Am I right? Number one, in Genesis 1, he was not incarnate. He didn't become a man. Am I right? He became a man in John 1. And now, after John 1, in Revelation 1, he has the human nature. He could be called Jesus. Do you believe that the God in Genesis 1 could be called Jesus? You say it. Was the God in Genesis 1 Jesus? No. Jesus was not God. Jesus was a man. Born in a manger. Growing up in a little town. That was Jesus. But I tell you, the very God in Revelation 1, 4, and 5 is not only the Creator in Genesis 1, but also Jesus. The name's here. From Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the ruler of the kings on this earth. It's no more than simple. From such a completed God to the 7 local churches. I tell you, dear saints, this is the ultimate revelation of the whole Bible. The revelation of the Bible begins with God as the creator. And it goes on and on and on and on and on until it reaches the last book. It reveals that God is such a process God. Even the third of the Trinity, the Spirit, is no more just the Spirit, but the spirits, 7 spirits, the all-inclusive Spirit. And the second of the Trinity is no more that simple. He is Jesus. He is Christ. He is a faithful witness, and he is the Lord of all the kings. He passed through what? Incarnation, human living, crucifixion, and resurrection. And now he is in ascension. He is in his enthronement above all the kings. This is our God. And this God now is related not to individuals. Could you see this? And this God now is not related to individuals, neither to the church. Try the best to follow me. But he is related to whom? The churches. I'm excited about this, but not only so, this is just at the beginning. To the end, I got more excited. What the end of this book says. The Spirit and the bride say. You just forget about come. You have to circle the word say. The Spirit and the bride say. You know grammar, don't you know? Here you have a compound subject. The Spirit and the bride say. The Spirit. Who is the Spirit? The processed, all-inclusive, life-giving triune God. There is the Spirit. And who is the bride? The church, including the churches and including all the saints, you and me. This is the bride. My, I hope that you could see this. I don't think if after you see this, you could sit so peacefully on your seat. I'm mad. I'm happy. I just forget what to say. I'm so happy. Oh. What the first verse of the Bible say? God created the heavens and the earth. Do you like this verse? Say it. Yes. You have to say, yeah, I like it. I like it. The last book of the Old Testament say, God loved Israel. Do you like it? I don't. I don't. Why? Because I am not included in Israel. God loving Israel has nothing to do with me. Whether he loves Israel or he doesn't love, it matters nothing to me. So I'm not interested to know that. Then you come to Matthew 1:1, genealogy of Jesus Christ. You love it? A little bit more, right? Very good. Then, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word became flesh, and tabernacle among us full of grace. And we have seen the glory of the only begotten of the Father. Do you love it? I love it. Because it has so much to do with me. And eventually what? Eventually, in these two books, one says, plus to Christ is the church. And plus the Son of God are the sons, the brothers of Him. The church. Very good, right? Then you go to the Acts, you have church here, church there. Every church in so many cities. There eventually you come through the epistles, you come to Revelation, you have what? You have Maya. To the churches from Him who was, who is, and who is to come, and from the seventh Spirit before the throne, and from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, and the Lord of the kings on this earth. Eventually, what? Eventually, the Spirit and the bride. You just tell me who is the Spirit. Say it. Yeah, the processed, triune God, the life-giving Spirit. And the bride. Who is the bride? The church comprising all the churches, including you and me. My, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this too much? Hallelujah, too much. The triune God now is one with so many of His redeemed. The Spirit and the bride say, come. Dear saints, I think I can stop here. You may go home and think a little about. As this is the revelation of the Bible today, where could you enjoy God?
Churches.
You say it.
In the churches.
Where?
Churches.
In Jewish temple?
No.
In the Muslim mosque?
No.
Where?
In the churches.
Still not so. To the point. Where you can enjoy this God. You have to say, in my local church. That means in your local church. According to this revelation, I would ask you again, where you can enjoy God.
In my local church.
And where is your local church? Very good. Cyprus, Philippines, Long Beach, Costa Mesa. And where's our local church? Anaheim. Oh, I have a local church. The church of Anaheim. It's nothing so dear, so near, so lovable to me at the church of Anaheim. I love the church in Long Beach, but not so much. I have to be honest. Among all the churches in Orange County, I love Anaheim the most. Because this is my local church. Now, how about you? Oh, well, be honest. Which of the local churches you love the most?
Well, I love the church in Anaheim. But not as much as the church in Long Beach. That's my local church.
Thank you. You are honest. Why I say I talk this way, just to show you. Poor situation. Pitiful situation of today's Christians. They don't have a church.
Yes.
They just don't have a church.
Right.
They like orphans. And they are homeless orphans. They don't have the parents, neither they have their home. They are homeless orphans. Before you came into the church, what were you? And where were you? You were an orphan, and you were a homeless orphan. That was our situation. Some Jewish brothers are here and sisters today. Are you still Jewish? Say it. No more. Say it strongly. Are you still Jewish? Are you still Jewish? You may dare to say, no! That's fact. That's the fact. You're no more Jewish. If you're still Jewish, you better go to the Jewish temple. One is in Los Angeles, Vermont. You are no more Jewish. No more Jewish. Number one. Are you some kind of believers? Just believed that Jesus Christ was God who created all the universe and who loved me and you and who died on the cross, and He's now our Savior, Redeemer. We just believe Him. Okay. Are you this kind of Christians?
No.
Are you?
No.
Are you a Christian in the four Gospels?
No.
Okay. Very good. Then, are you some Christians believing that Christ is the Creator, is the Redeemer, and you and I, we are all His believers, and we are His body. We are His body. And we are the church. Are you this kind of Christians? Yeah, very good. Yes, but. But what? In other words, are you Christians just merely poorly or purely inept? Now, what kind of Christians are you? You have to say, we are Christians in revelation. In the ultimate revelation. In the consummate revelation. And here, we are Christians of what? Of the processed, triune, all-inclusive, life-giving God. Mingled with all the churches, comprising all the saints. Isn't this wonderful? This morning, I sure like to impress you with this. The message is short, but you have to see this is quite embracing. God and Christ. Secondly, God plus Christ and plus the church. Thirdly, God plus Christ plus the church plus the churches. Fourthly, God, Christ, the church, and the churches. These are the four main features, characters in the whole revelation of the Bible. But sorry to say, too many Christians today are still not in revelation. Are still not in revelation. Their God is not so much as the one triune revealed in Revelation 1 and 4. But our God is so. Our God is the one who is, who was, and who is coming, and who is the seventh Spirit, and who is Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, and the ruler of the kings on this earth. He is so much. Our God is so much. Our God is no more merely the creator, as in Genesis 1. That was too ancient. That was quite antique. But today, our God is no more merely like that. Our God is a processed, triune, all-inclusive, life-giving. This is our God. Do you think this is my teaching? Do you go out, tell people that when the three teach it this way? No, this is not my teaching. This is the bird's eye view of the Bible. Young people, I would just congratulate you. I will say congratulations to all of you. You are so blessed that you can hear this word and you can see this view. And such a processed, all-inclusive, life-giving triune God is where? You say it, is where? Practically speaking, is in your local church. You can never enjoy Him elsewhere. No, impossible. So, in this one book, it says what? To this stage, it doesn't say that what was happened in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, it says what? The Spirit of Jehovah, right, descended upon the prophet so-and-so. Or the word of Jehovah came to prophet so-and-so. But here it says what? The Spirit speaks to the churches. Who? Jehovah? Say it. No. Who? The Spirit. The Spirit. The Spirit speaks to the churches. Not through any prophet, but directly. The Spirit speaks to the churches. As the Spirit speaks to the churches, where could you listen to Him? Where could you hear Him? You have to say, in one of the churches, which is my church, in Cyprus. And Dick has to say, in one of the churches, which is my church, in Long Beach. I read a minute. Dear saints, in the past few days, we have seen when the ground of oneness is lost. Oh, by that time was lost. Everything was gone. Everything was gone. All the things pertaining to God were gone. Am I right? Then, when they came back to the recovery, I tell you, all the things pertaining to God were coming back. Today, the principle is the same. You have to realize our God today is the Spirit. He is the Spirit. He is the Father embodied in the Son. And the Son realized as the Father, as the Spirit. Today, He is the Spirit. The seventh Spirit, all-inclusive Spirit. And this very God, the Spirit, speaks to the churches. So you and I have to be in one of the churches. Then we can hear Him. And we can get His word. And eventually what? Eventually the Spirit and the bride, comprising all the local churches, are one. That day will come. Today we are listening to the Spirit speaking to churches, expecting one day will come that the Spirit and the churches, the bride, will be one. Marvelous. I do mean it. If you are care about this vision, we don't need to stay here. But go home. Hallelujah. We got the vision. We know where we have to be. Right? We know where we have to be. No argument. You have to realize this oneness is the practical local oneness in which every one of us should be. Every one of us must be in this local oneness. If we miss the local oneness, we miss the church, and we miss the Spirit, and we miss the all-inclusive, processed, triune God. Do you all agree with me? Do you really all agree with me? Now you can understand why Christianity today is so barren, B-A-R-E-N, so poor. Why? Now you understand why. Now you understand why. They missed the oneness. They missed the church. They missed the Spirit. Am I right? You all have to admit, today's Christianity is altogether poverty. There's nothing there. The Bible's there, but they don't have light. They read every page about the same. Am I right? The name of Christ is there, but the person is not there. The name of God is there, but the reality is not there. They missed all these because they missed the very ground that holds all this. And what is the ground? The ground of oneness. And now this morning, I have to tell you, the ground of oneness is just the ground of the local oneness. And it is just the ground of locality. Over 22, 3 years ago, I was in Taipei. Among us, there was an American brother who was a medical doctor. He was a very good, intimate, close friend to me. Actually, he became my family doctor. Sorry, I wouldn't give you his name. He stayed with us for quite a long time. He listened to all those 30 messages concerning the church ground. He said to me, brother, I just cannot understand what is the church of locality. I explained to him. He said, I still couldn't understand. That bothered him. Then I said, could you understand the ground of oneness? He said, well, It seems a little bit, I understand this. The ground of oneness, I understand. But the ground of locality, I don't understand. What is this? What is this? No, I told you already, I had at least 30 long talks every time from 2 to more than 3 hours with Brother Austin Sparks. Just talk about this matter of ground. Eventually, he said, I cannot understand your term, the ground of locality. But this morning, after all these messages, I would check with you, does the ground of locality bother you? No. Do you understand it? Yes. You all understand it. I talked to both of them, especially to Mr. Sparks. I said, Brother Sparks, you know this, I believe, better than I do, that the holy temple among the children of Israel was only allowed to build on the mountaintop of Mount Moriah, where Abraham offered his son Isaac. Later on, this Mount Moriah changed the name to what? To Zion. Zion was just Moriah. And the Bible says the temple of God shouldn't build on any other spot. It got to be there. That is the ground, right, on which the temple was built. And that was the unique ground that kept the oneness of all the children of Israel. I said, Brother Spark, surely you know this. He admitted. Then I said, could the oneness among the Israel be kept by a temple built in Babylon? In the same design, with the same material, in the same size, and in the same color. Everything the same. In Babylon. Could that temple built in Babylon, could that be a center of the oneness? Everybody knows that could never be. Rather, if such a temple was built in Babylon, that was what? A center of division that would have separated the Jews from one into two. So I said, all the captivities, they needed to go back to that ground of oneness. And that oneness was in the locality of Zion. So that ground was the ground of unity, the ground of oneness. There was also the ground of locality. I did believe he understood, but he would never admit it. He would never admit it. And after I said so much, he said, I still couldn't understand. Then I said, it is better let us drink more tea. We don't need to talk that much. Just take easy and get relaxed and take more tea. Is this so hard to understand? Don't you understand this morning? Everybody understands. Why people wouldn't understand? Because they wouldn't give up their concept. Okay. I have to keep quiet a little bit. Anyhow, I believe you have seen in the Old Testament, the oneness was the oneness. When we come to the end of the Bible, I tell you, the oneness becomes a local oneness. If you are not in the local oneness, you are not in the oneness. If you are not in the local church, in one of the local churches, you are not in the church. And you can never be in the church. For you to be in the church, you have to be in one of the local churches. It is in the same principle. If you are going to be in the oneness, you have to be in the local oneness. In the oneness, that is in your locality. You have to be in the oneness, but dictator, that is in your city, Long Beach. Today, the local oneness is practical. It's practical. Even it is personal. It's not individualistic, but personal. Very personal. If you are not in the local oneness, personally, you actually are not in the church. Actually, you are not in the oneness. To be in the oneness, you have to be in the local oneness. This is why the title of the message this morning is what? The ultimate revelation of the local oneness. I do believe thus far you should have seen, right? The local oneness. Are you in it?
Amen.
Praise God. I am in it. Me too. But I like to tell you, this oneness was fully damaged and fully lost up to the time when the Catholic Church was formed. You know, the Catholic Church was pregnant since 300 something. Constantine the Great came into power, I believe it was 313. 12 years later, he called a kind of Christian convention, council at Nicaea. And he presided that Nicaea council in which the Nicene Creed was made. He was a great politician. He realized to persecute the Christians, the Christian churches, was too foolish for the building up of his country. So he turned his policy from persecuting to what? To supporting, to sponsoring, in order to use the power, the influence of Christians for his building of his empire. And under his reign, many peoples around Mediterranean, many peoples, different peoples, and all peoples were fighting without a kind of harmony. So he was wise. He was wise to what? To harmonize the Christians first. You see? To make the Christians first in peace. By that time, the Christian leaders were fighting. So he gathered them and he forced them to be one. I tell you, that was the beginning of the pregnancy of the Catholic Church. from 325, after 2.5 centuries, to 570 or 80, to that part, the Pope system was fully established. The Pope papacy came into existence. That was the completion of the formation of the pregnancy of the Catholic Church. I tell you, after that period of time, the local oneness was absolutely destroyed and lost. We know the story. Then since the 6th century onward, about 9 to 10 centuries, the world history entered into the dark age, the age of darkness. The Bible was locked. Not only the local oneness, the genuine oneness was lost, even the Bible was locked, was imprisoned. The salvation was all smeared. Then, 1400, 1500 something, around that time, a large number of faithful believers were raised up. They carry out the Reformation. Actually, Martin Luther was only a part. Okay, sorry to say the honest word. Christianity ascribed too much to Martin Luther. Luther was great in recovering the justification by faith, in recovering the free salvation. He was great in this. He was a lion. But when he came to the church problem, he was a chicken. It is altogether not too much to say this. He made a big, big mistake. He was afraid to be killed. He appealed to German authority and helping the German king to form the German state church, which was the first one. Outside of the Catholic Church, beside the Catholic Church, the first Protestant state church was formed in Germany by the help of Luther. Terrible. He knew that was wrong. But he would not keep the principle. Not only so, he criticized the people who were on life. Springfield was criticized by him. He even called Springfield a devil. And the other day, Brother R. there, from his study of the church history, he found out even Martin Luther persecuted the fathers of the Baptist church. And those Baptists, they saw the light that sprinkling was wrong. The infant baptism was wrong. Just a little one born knowing nothing to water them. This is altogether nonsensical, which was called infant baptism. And the Baptist fathers were strong to keep the suits at the cost of their life. A good number were burned by the Catholic Church and by the state churches and even persecuted by Luther. I like to tell you the history. We shouldn't give Luther that much. He made a big blunder. He laid the foundation of today's Protestantism. Then all the European countries, except England, followed Germany to form the state churches. You have to notice, all the European state churches, all are Lutheran. Lutheran. The church in Dutch, the church in Sweden, the church in Denmark, the church in Norway, and so forth, all are Lutheran churches. They all are state churches. Even today, the Germans need to get legal exemption. Otherwise, every year you have to pay church tax to the government. And the German government receives the tax for the church. And from the tax of the church, pays the ministers. What an abomination in the eyes of God. England didn't follow Lutheran, but England still formed a state church, the Church of England, the Anglican church. It's a little different from Lutheran, but very close to the Catholic. Well, I have something more to say. I just go fast. Anyhow, under that kind of condition, the big mistake made by Martin Luther. So many faithful ones suffered the persecution. They suffered the persecution. Eventually, mostly in Northern Europe, they couldn't stay. They all escaped to one place where Zinzendorf was. By this time, it was 1700, either 20 or 30 already. The beginning of the 18th century. All these escapees were Puritans, faithful ones. Most of them faithful to the truths of immersion. Some of them faithful to the truths of presbytery. They were persecuted. Many were slaughtered, burned, and the rest, they ran away from Northern Europe to Bohemia, which was the very spot that Hitler began the war in Europe, 1939 September. I still remember all these things. I read all the things in the newspaper. 1939 September, I was in Chifu. The exchange of foreign money went up a lot due to that war. That war just happened in Bohemia, where Zinzendorf was. And Zinzendorf had the love and had the burden to collect all these dissenters, pure dissenters. They were not only dissenting to the Catholic Church, to the state church, even they were dissenting one to another. All went to Bohemia and stayed with Zinzendorf day and night. They had nothing to do. They lost their job, they lost their farms and so forth. They were just debating, fighting, doctrinally. While they were there, I not only read the history, I translated this part of the history into the Chinese paper, the Ministry of the Word, in 1952. So I know a little bit about it. Then one day, Zinzendorf gathered all the leaders and advised them, brothers, we are here. We are here not for this kind of debate. I would ask you and command you to sign a paper to agree with all, to drop all the minor debates. Drop your debates for immersion. Drop your debates for presbytery. Drop all these debates. Otherwise, we have no way to go on. You must sign this paper. And they did. They signed it. The story told us, right after they signed that paper, on the Lord's Day, they had the Lord's table. That was a big outpouring of the Spirit. Let me tell you, that was the first time the practice of the church life was recovered since Martin Luther's time. You have to know that was at least 200 years later than Luther. Luther was there 1500 something. That kind of city church brought in nothing but deadness, formality. Then there was a reaction. The reaction of the mystical teachings in the 1600 something under Matt McGowan, Father Fenelon. That reaction was happened within the Catholic Church. A reaction on the deadness of the Reformed Church. But there was still no church life until 1 century later. The Reformation began in 1500 something. The reaction of the mysticism happened in 1600 something. Then in 1700 something in Bohemia, the first practice of the church life was recovered with Zinzendorf. Of course, before that time, most of the Puritans used the word brother already. This kind of brother, that kind of brother. They realized all the believers should be brothers. But anyhow, 1700, under the leadership of Zinzendorf, the practice of the church was not that adequate. It was good, very good, but not that adequate. 1 century later, 1825 to 29, in those few years, there was a group of young believers raised up in Britain. And John Nelson Darby was one among those leaders. That was the beginning of the Brethren Assembly. According to the writings at the beginning, since 1929, probably to 1829 to 1860, about just half a quarter. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. It was more completed. It was more adequate. The church life was wonderful. I don't like to say too much. But sorry, just about after 1/4 of a century, at the last part of last century, 18 something, due to their doctrinal debates, they were split. They were divided. I don't need to repeat too much. Divided again and again and again and again and again. Within 90 years, they were divided into 150 divisions. From 1829 to 1919, right after the First War, they were divided into 150 divisions. Once the split began among them, I tell you, the oneness was dead. So the presence of the Lord was very much diminished. Till another century, 1900 something. It's quite interesting. 1500 something, Luther was there. 1600 something, Young mystical teachings were there. Then 1700 something, the Moravian brothers under Zinzendorf were there. Then 1800 something, Darby and the brethren were there. Now 1900 something. Listen to this. 100 years later, 100 years later, 1 century later, 1 century later. From 15 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18, 18 to 19. 400 years. The Lord went to China, a heathen land, to raise up again a group of young people under the leadership of this brother Watchman Nee. He had a very thorough talk with me, telling me the reason why God came to China. He said, God was forced to come to China because by that time, China, as far as the church practice is concerned, was still a virgin soil. This was the term what he used. He said both Europe and America were just spoiled. It was hard for the Lord to have any clear thing in Europe or in America. So the Lord had no way. The Lord was forced to go to a heathen land, which was the virgin soil for the church practice. It was so. We didn't know anything. The first church was established in the Lord Recovery in 1929. 1922 in Brother Nee's hometown of Chao. With little knowledge, but that was 100% outside of Christianity. From that year, 1922, he began to minister when he was 20. And 3 years later, 1925, I got saved. I was in the North. Right away, I was brought to contact his writings. I was deeply impressed. Right away, I corresponded with him since 1925. Through his writings, many of us young people were stirred up to see the wrongdoings of the denomination. We were all influenced by his writings to drop the whole thing of Christianity, but not the Lord's name, not the gospel, not the Bible. We still kept these three things: Lord's name, the gospel, and the Bible. To make the story short, under his leading, many of us studied the histories of the church, the biographies of the church fathers, of the spiritual giants, the central messages of all these spiritual teachers. We, as a group of young people, I would say, read through all these books. It's not too much to say this. Even we didn't come out to the Western world, but we got to know Christianity much better through the reading of all these things. Okay. Under the leadership, through the reading of these books, under the leadership of Brother Nee, we picked up all the right things, good things, from all different groups. We pick up immersion from the Baptist. We pick up presbytery, the eldership, from the Presbyterian. We pick up the practical holiness from the Methodist. You know the word method. That was founded by a few young people of Oxford University, including John Wesley, Charles Wesley, and George Whitefield. Those young people, they form a group to set up some method, M-E-T-H-O-D, method, to be holy. They have 4 absolute things. I can remember, I think, absolute honest, absolute faithful, and absolute loving, something, another absolute. These were their message. Then John Wesley began to preach outside the so-called church sanctuary. He preached on the street corners without the white collar, black collar toward the back. He broke through all those formalities. He was influenced by Zinzendorf, Moravian Brothers. Of course, his influence may return back to them also. But anyhow, in the 18th century, 1700 something, all the things happened there, we pick up all these things. Eventually, we pick up the spirituality of the Pentecostal things. We will not follow the follies of that kind of speaking. So, in the early days, when we were meeting, every newcomer got bothered. Some say they are just like the Baptists. Some say, no, they are like the Presbyterian. Some say they are like the holiness people. And some would even say they are no doubt just the Chinese version of the Primus brother. The Chinese version. Why? How to meet, how to run the seas, how to have the meeting carried out, nearly 95% according to brethren practice. We read their books and we pick up their practices. I said already, whatever goes we pick up. To make the story short, that was the practice at the beginning. I still remember 1932, the church in my hometown was raised up. We were there with nothing, just a little heart. Lord will love you. We don't agree with Christianity. We don't agree. We love you. We have a heart and we have a Bible. We know nothing. We didn't have a hymnal. And we didn't know how to call a hymnal. And we didn't know how to have the Lord's table. We didn't know everything. Nobody taught us. We just sat there around the table. You look at me, and I look at you. We look at each other, knowing nothing to do. One taught me, and I taught him. Then we prayed. We sang the Lord. We praised the Lord. Something like this. You may say that was pitiful, but I tell you, that was very sweet. Oh, the sweet presence of the Lord. We knew nothing, just like this. Then, up to 1930, listen, Brother Nee came out to visit Europe and America, including Canada and USA. He spoke to 2,000 brethren people in New York. He saw the divisions, the confusions in Toronto, in Vancouver, where one city, 3 or 4 so-called brother assemblies there. Divided again and again, he got bothered. He saw the confusion. So he said to himself, I must reread the New Testament to find out what is the boundary of a local assembly. And he did it, and he found out that the boundary of the local assembly must be the boundary of that city in which a local assembly was. He found out this. So he put out a book, The Meeting Life. We still have this book. And in this book, he stressed strongly the local border. He called the local border that is the border of a city in which a church is. It was good. It was helpful. And I was even asked to write a preface to that book. I did it. 3 years later, 1937, 3 years later, he saw more light from the local border. He went down to see the local ground. So he called an urgent co-workers meeting. I was there to give the message of this book, The Normal Christian Church Life. In this book, you could see the stress was the local ground. Thus far, after 1939, I would say the local oneness was fully recovered. It was fully recovered. We got to be so clear that today we have no other way but to be on the local ground to practice the local church life. Since that time, a lot of oppositions, a lot of arguments. Some came to us saying, you are too proud. You are the local church, are we not? You are the church in Shanghai, are we not Christians in Shanghai? At the beginning, that bothered us. We didn't have the experience to fight this kind of battle, to answer this kind of question. Later on, we learned a lot by fighting. I myself learned a lot by fighting. I don't like to waste your time, just to save your time. After I learned so many things to fight, I built a little arsenal to produce the weapons to fight this kind of battle. One of the strongest weapons is this. You heard this about. But this morning, for some of the young ones, I like to pass on this weapon to them. Learn to fight. Whenever you consider this as a weapon, or as a bond, or each bond or a bond, all okay. I don't know where are the chalks. Okay. Here is the gold land again, right? And the center was Jerusalem. When this ground was not destroyed, was not lost, this was the center that held all the children of Israel in oneness. Am I right? And one day, some of them were carried away, right? Carried away to Syria. This happened, right? In 1 King, Proverbs chapter 6, 15, 16, 17. Then, sometime later, some were carried away to Egypt. You see, first one group, then another group, and eventually a great number of them were carried away to Babylon. Right? So, the original one unique people now were scattered into three divisions. Number one division is here, right? And number two division is here. And number three division is here. They were divided. A picture is better than 1,000 words. Then 70 years expired. God came in, stirred up the things, and commanded them to go back. Praise the Lord. Some went back, even though not too many, at least 40 to 50,000. They went back mostly from Babylon to Jerusalem. Listen, now they have the fourth group. Before the return of the captivities, there were only three groups, 1, 2, 3. But now, due to the fact that over 40,000 captives went back, and that return caused a split. Yes or no? You have to be carefully see it. You have to realize this fourth group, yes, it is another group. But this was not a division. This was a recovery. Could you see this? This was a recovery. Maybe some here in Babylon, under the very influence of Daniel very much, would say, brothers, you don't need to be so narrow. God is everywhere. You don't need to go back to Jerusalem. Look at Daniel, how much he loved the Lord. He didn't go back. He was in Babylon. Why wouldn't you go back? We don't need to go back. We just stay here. How about this? How about this? I tell you, if Daniel would have said this, Daniel had become no Daniel. Yes, Daniel died. You read Daniel chapter 1. He died on the first year of Cyrus. When Cyrus gave the decree ordering the captive to go back, in that year, Daniel died. But before that, daily he prayed, opening the window toward Jerusalem. He wanted to go back. He didn't have the opportunity. Am I right? To remain in Babylon, that is not to remain in oneness. That is to remain where? In division. Here is a division, here is a division, and here's also division. To remain in any one of these three is to remain in division. To go back to Jerusalem is not to increase another division. It is to have the genuine oneness recovered. Okay, now actually the word for growth. Which of these four was the real nation of Israel? You say it. Which was? Could you call those in Syria the nation of Israel? In Egypt? In Babylon? No. In Babylon, I would think maybe over a million. Even more in Babylon. That many of Jews still could not be called the nation of Israel. How could you? Only about 50,000. How could you call yourself the nation of Israel? You say it. You answer it. Because they went back to the right ground. Not only in ancient time, even today on this earth. The Jews today on the earth are about 40 million. In New York, over 3 million. Only 2.5, the most, millions went back to Palestine. Only these 2.5 Jews are what? The nation of Israel. Even the United Nations, the UN recognizes. The number of the Jews in New York is bigger than that in the nation of Israel. But all the Jews are the Jews, not all the nation of Israel. They may love the nation of Israel. They may give a lot of dollars to help them. That is another story. You see? As long as they would not go back to their father's land, they would not join Jerusalem. I tell you, regardless how much Jewish they are still not the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel is only those who are now remaining in Israel as the members, the constituents of that nation. Is this clear? I think this answers all the questions. Some would ask you why we are in Anaheim, yet we are not the church in Anaheim. You have to ask them where you are. You are in the Presbyterian. Where you are in the Baptist. Where you are in this, you are in that. You are not in the church in Anaheim. Am I right? Is this clear? Many Christians, yes, just like many Jews. But not every Jew today is a part of the nation of Israel. Only those Jews who went back to their father's land, to the original ground of oneness. Many Christians, but not everyone is in the local church. Only those who dropped the divisive grounds and left them and came back to the ground of oneness. They, regardless how few they may be, they are the church. Why? Because if they are not the church, what are they? If they are not the church, what are they? Am I right? If we are not the church in Anaheim, what are we? You just tell me. You give me a name. What are we? Actually, we don't have a name. But anyhow, I believe, at least I hope, this will answer your questions. When you would be asked or opposed to this point, just be patient to look into the situation, how much the other side could take in. You give them, you give him, her, or them this much. If they couldn't take anything in, forget about it. You don't need to talk about it. You see, if you realize they could take something, then you just gave them that much. I tell you this morning, we don't have that long time, I just give you this one bomb. Learn to use this in a good skill, in a very skillful way. You will defeat every opposer. I did it. I have the full assurance. No one can stand this illustration. Are not those Jews in New York Israelites? They are. Then why you say they are not the nation of Israel? Why? Just because they don't have the ground. They are not on the ground. And I do believe many Jews in the USA are much more smarter than those returned to the Father's land. Listen to this. Why those in Babylon didn't go back? You tell me why. Why? Yeah, comfort. They got settled. And they don't like even to change their language. They got settled. Everything. You check with the Jews in New York. On the one hand, they love the nation of Israel, but they wouldn't go back. They wouldn't go back. Oh, the life there. And everything is so awkward. We got settled we like to be an American Jew. Right? We don't like to be an Israeli Jew. We just like to be an American Jew. Now, what is this? This is selfish. Am I right? This is not willing to pay the price for the unique ground. Today is the same. Many seeking Christians, they couldn't say they haven't seen a bit of the light. They saw something. But the only problem is the cost, is the price that they have to pay. Many who will turn this way will lose their position, will lose their name, will lose their popularity, will lose everything. Am I right? But we have no way. We have no way. Am I right? What is our way? Do we have some choice? We have to take this narrow way of the cross. We have to take this way to be defamed. We have to take this way to be despised, to be criticized, to be evil spoken of. We have to. No other way. But hallelujah. Amen. Here, in the unique local oneness, we have the presence of the Lord. We have His house. We have the altar. We have all the festivals. Hallelujah. Nothing can compete with all the things we are enjoying. I'm happy. I'm still happy. Well, maybe I have to stop here. What else should I cover? After this meeting, or after all the conference meetings, where shall you go? Where shall you go? Shall you move from one local church to another one? Don't answer me so directly. You have to answer, it depends upon. If it is a real migration, I will do it. But if it is just a move because of my taste, I will not do it. I will just remain where I am. What shall we do? Say it. What shall we do? Yeah, stay in the church where you and I are. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Let me check with you, young people. Are you clear now?
Amen.
After these 10 meetings, have you been made clear?
Amen.
Have you seen the vision?
Amen.
The high places? The ground of oneness?
Amen.
And the local oneness?
Amen.
And the recovery of the local oneness?
Amen.
I'm happy to hear this. Hallelujah.
Amen.
If you would have seen this, my burden is discharged.
Amen.
Try to comfort this morning. We still have half an hour about.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media or visit our website for more from Living Stream Ministry.